I made a promise to my parents to protect this city from the evil that took their lives.
I might only point out that in one's quest for justice, I have seen someone even as sane as yourself behave in the most surprising ways.
The Long Halloween is not just a Batman story. It is the story of Gotham, both within and out with the comics. Coming in at 13 issues and spanning over 13 months, The Long Halloween can easily be considered the magnum opus of Jeff Loeb's writing, and a true testament to Tim Sale's symbolic and evocative art style. It is so well respected that it is where many creators, even those outside the comic book community, turn to for inspiration on Batman. It is a comic that is not afraid to focus on Batman's detective side, an aspect of the character often neglected in recent years. But despite arguably being Batman's most definitive mystery, the mystery is arguably the weakest aspect of the comic. But that's not really the point. I'm here to tell you that in Batman's most famous mystery comic, the mystery doesn't matter. The Long Halloween is as brilliant as it is because it cements Batman comics as we know them today, and I think was the beginning of Gotham as a character. We begin at a wedding where we're introduced to the Falcone family, Father Carmine and son Alberto, who is actively kept away from the family business. Right away, we feel as though we've been transported to a different time due to the writing and the artwork. This is entirely intentional and an important component to what this comic is trying to achieve. Batman, Harvey Dent and Jim Gordon all meet to discuss what's going to be done about organised crime in the city, and they all make a pact to solve the problem. This pact is an early instance of a writer's heavy focus on Batman's vow to end crime in Gotham, a vow he will never be able to let go of, even in the face of true happiness.
I didn't count on being happy.
While our three heroes work towards this goal, someone starts murdering members of two prominent rival crime families. Every murder is committed on a holiday, the first one being Halloween. Now Batman's attention is divided between the crime families and the holiday killer, and clear lines are drawn between Batman and the killer as to how far one should go to rid themselves of crime.
I want to be clear on this. In our zeal to bring Falcone to justice, I'll let you bend the rules, but we cannot break them. Otherwise, how are we any different from him?
From this point forward, the volumes are fairly episodic, focusing on Batman's rogues gallery and their respective places in Gotham, with the underlying mystery of holiday an ever-present threat. But despite this threat, we are very much shown that while these murders are happening, life is just going on in Gotham. The city doesn't come to a halt and all energy is put into catching the killer. No. People just keep on living. This adds to the feeling that this is a story taking place over a longer period of time. As to the identity of the killer, suspects mount up, but all evidence seems to be pointing to Harvey Dent, with the Joker himself even suspecting it and declaring the man mad. As Harvey's job starts to get to him and further damages his marriage and his psyche, it becomes more and more likely that he is the killer, before he is attacked with acid while prosecuting a mobster, and entirely loses his grip on reality. As we creep closer and closer to the next Halloween, it's revealed that Alberto, who was apparently a previous victim, is the killer because he is resentful of his father pushing him out of the business, which in terms of the mystery was the best ending. But there is a problem. Alberto is a fraud. Batman isn't buying it and confronts Harvey, who informs him that there was always 2 holiday killers. Batman takes this to mean Harvey and Two-Face, but number 1 is actually Harvey's wife, Gilda.
Harvey, I did what needed to be done. Do you remember? You promised we would finally have time together when you didn't have so much work to do. I read your case files about taking serial numbers off guns and how a baby bottle nipple would muffle the sound and how clues are left at murder scenes, and I thought, if I did that, Batman would think it was someone extraordinary and not me. Not me. You had the same idea as me. You picked up where I left off. So we could have time together. A child. A secret.
This reveal makes very little sense. How did Harvey and Gilda know when to switch? There were no cleverly placed hints in their conversations as a married couple. The baby bottle nipple used as a silencer is a clever little clue considering their want to start a family, but it is not enough to justify this reveal. So this seems to be where the long Halloween falls down. But this is where my point comes into play. This doesn't make logical sense, but in the context of the comic and the direction Batman comics were taking, it makes emotional sense. If you are looking at this logically, Alberto was the only victim whose body was never recovered. All the others shot were fully involved in the family business, whereas Alberto was kept away from it, so the victim profile is a little different, and he is the one with the clearest motive, parental resentment. Whereas Harvey and Gilda, yes, they hate mobsters, and Harvey's job is pulling them apart and stopping them from having a family, but they are normal middle-class people with everything to lose by doing this. And like I said, there was no indication that they could have been conspiring, so how did they instinctively know when to take over from each other? It's not impossible, but it makes less sense than Alberto. But all of you modern Batman fans will know that Gotham is not a normal city. Its denizens are not like those of a normal city. The amount of maniacs and madmen it has is not normal. The level of lawlessness some parts of it have is not normal. It is as if hell has erupted through the sidewalks. Gotham is a place that sinks its teeth into those that live there, and those people bite back. Gilda and Harvey are the killers because Gotham can take perfectly normal, good people and pull out their darkest impulses. Look at the best iterations of Gotham. They don't look like you've stepped into Chicago or New Jersey. They look like you've stepped into a Gothic fairy tale. Something resembling a modern Grimm Brothers narrative where things don't make logical sense, but there is always an emotional truth to it. And the one thing that makes this most like a true old fairy tale, Batman fails. He doesn't even solve the holiday killer case. The long Halloween is the beginning of a long failure. This is the story of how Batman fails and why he will always fail.
You can't stop crime. That's what you never understood.
One of the reasons I find the character of Jason Todd so interesting, and also why I think he is often misused, is because he is the only person outside of the Rogues Gallery that calls Batman out on his failure. I think a lot of readers and writers misunderstand this character because they forget that Batman is a failure. He may have his victories, but his goal of wiping out crime is an unattainable fantasy, but one he will never stop fighting for. In our world, we talk about the war on crime or the war on drugs, and I think most people know that it is to be fought, but never won. As long as there is need and indeed want, there will always be crime. This Gothic mirror of our own world began with The Dark Knight Returns and made it through another decade of iterations before, I believe, it was cemented in The Long Halloween. A movement away from short victories and a deeper exploration of a long defeat. Many people hold this view of Batman and Gotham today. Most believe this was cemented thanks to Batman the Animated Series, and I definitely do believe that is true for a lot of people. But in terms of the comics, writers had definitely played around with these ideas before. It began in 1986 with Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, that depicted a bleak future for Batman, in which he never achieved his goal. Then in 1987, they decided to take that idea and put it into the world of a young Batman with Year One, a time where he was fighting this losing battle, but still held on to hope that he could win it. Then in 1992, Batman the Animated Series took these ideas and made possibly the best adaptation of Batman ever conceived. But I believe this idea, especially in the comics, was cemented in 1996 with The Long Halloween. Because even Batman the Animated Series kept your hope alive with its small victories in every episode. This comic shows Batman failing on every level. Published in a time of prosperity but also vast income inequality and high paranoia surrounding crime and drugs, this heightened caricature of city life ushers out a time of sophisticated yet normal criminals and brings in an age of madmen.
You thought that Gotham City was synonymous with organized crime, but Gotham City has changed. It doesn't want your kind anymore.
This also marks a shift in Batman comics towards a focus on the mentality of dangerous people rather than just their actions. None of this can be encapsulated more than in the fall of Harvey Dent. Established as a kind of heroic person in Year One, his tragic fall into madness brings forward ideas that bad people are never so simple as just being bad. Again, this is by no means the first Batman comic to do this, but The Long Halloween is nothing if not the tragic decline of a once hopeful man, and a clear look at what Batman could become if he ever crosses the lines he's drawn for himself. Again, this heightens the futility of Batman's never-ending war with crime, as all he can do is keep his head above water and struggle on. While Harvey, who looks at the injustice of the justice system every day, believes that the only fair thing to do is flip a coin. The fall of Harvey and his wife Gilda is a dark fairy tale of two ordinary people upon whom tragedy strikes. What lessons does this dark fairy tale teach us? That's for you to decide. My takeaway is that The Long Halloween never ends. Whatever world evil you are fighting, you will have your victories, but you will always be fighting. A bleak ending, you might think, but for me, I find it incredibly hopeful. Fighting when victory is possible is not easy, but it's what we expect from our heroes. Fighting when victory is impossible may seem fruitless to some people, but for me, fighting simply because you know it's the right thing to do, fighting for the chance that you may save one person or change one life, is the most human thing I have ever come across. Because let's face it, how many of us are going to change the world? How many of us will save thousands? But what we can do is make a difference to the lives of some, who will in turn affect the lives of others. and make this long Halloween a little less dark. I know that's a little bit of a hopeful message for Halloween, but I much prefer the more whimsical, happy side of the season, and whimsical and happy is just not something you get from Batman. But the thing about Batman is there is always light to be found in the darkness, and that is why I love the comics. So everyone, thank you for listening, and please tell me if you enjoy this more scripted video essay style content, or do you just prefer me ranting at the camera for 20 minutes? Do let me know. But I do want to take a moment to welcome my new Loki patron, Jake Rittenauer. I hope I said that right. And of course, a big thank you to my Nightwing patron, Spaceman Spiff.
Dude, I'm just here for the Bob Ganoush.
If you want to consider supporting the channel, links in the description. Otherwise, please also consider liking and subscribing, that really helps me out. And lastly, I want to thank all my wonderful voice actors. Trying his hand at Jim Gordon, my friend Sean, aka Otaku Nuts. He runs a great blog ranking books and anime. Link is in the description, please check it out and show him some love. Then there's my lovely brother voicing Alberto and channeling his high school performance of The Importance of Being Earnest to bring you Alfred. Big thanks to him. And lastly, voicing Gilda and Batman respectively are Tia and Annie Holmes, two lovely people who actually are American. Americans, do tell me what you thought of Alberto and Gordon. I'll pass on your notes. So again, do tell me if you like this style of content, and I will be back in November with Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. Happy Halloween.